Alright, we actually need to sit down and talk about Hollywood Rip Ride Rockit. I'm really surprised this whole news story isn't getting more attention. I know it came out a little while back, but the potential for this replacement is incredibly exciting. We are talking a world-class attraction coming soon to Universal Studios Park, the park that arguably needs it the most, and no one's really talking about it. I mean, obviously, yes, Epic Universe is opening. That's stealing the whole show. I completely understand that, but we really need to sit down and dive into this. For those who aren't familiar, Rip Ride Rockit is arguably the most iconic coaster at Universal Studios. The structure itself is instantly recognizable, something everyone has seen in a photo. Like, you have seen this ride. If you don't know anything about roller coasters, you've at least seen this ride once in your life. Personally, it holds a very special place in my heart because it was the coaster that helped me conquer my fear of roller coasters. I grew up as an Orlando local, and this was always the most polarizing ride. And when I rode it, I realized I like these things way more than I thought. And here I am now. And while it might not be everyone's favorite, I genuinely enjoy the coaster, and I always have. I'd even argue it's one of the best coasters in Florida. Bold take, I know, but the layout is so unique and the airtime is surprisingly powerful. But let's go back to my main point. Universal has officially confirmed that Hollywood Rip Ride Rockit will be closing for good in September of 2025. While this isn't exactly surprising, it's been a very long time coming. Universal has invested millions into this ride over the years, but it's no secret that it had been plagued with issues. At this point, it's clear that a more reliable attraction is needed. Now, it is 16 years old as well. It's had a solid run since it debuted in 2009. It brought a much needed thrill ride to Universal Studios, truly putting that park alone on the map. It gave the park a major adrenaline boost, and while it looks like Universal plans to replace it with another high-intensity coaster, it's still, for me at least, is very sad to see this one go. Of course, there's already plenty of talk about what's replacing it, and we actually have a pretty good idea of what's coming. But before we get into that, there are a lot of factors surrounding this closure that needs to be discussed, starting with the closing date itself. September 2025 is actually a very interesting choice for Rip Ride Rockit's closure. I know a lot of people are like, well, actually that's perfect, it's right after the summer when things die down. But actually, right after the summer is Universal Studios' specifically busiest time of the year, as it coincides with the start of their biggest annual event, Halloween Horror Nights. During HHN, the park desperately needs as much capacity as possible, with house lines regularly exceeding over an hour. Rip Ride Rockit specifically is always one of the most popular attractions during the event, and with its high capacity, it really helps absorb the crowds. Removing it during HHN actually raises a lot of questions about how Universal plans to handle the capacity, especially since long queue times have been one of the biggest complaints with the event through the years. Now, there have been a lot of rumors this year with HHN, if it will feature more houses than usual, as Universal's decision to use Soundstage 25 is marking its first return since 2019. With so many unknowns surrounding this year's event, it'll be interesting to see how Universal manages the crowds. Another big question is when demolition will actually begin. Many of the HHN queues pass directly under Rip Ride Rockit, so if the ride closes in September, Universal likely won't start tearing it down until the event ends in November, unless they figure out an intricate way to begin removal while HHN is still running. The timing of this closure is definitely unexpected. I'm surprised Universal didn't shut it down earlier in the year or wait until January 26, allowing it to operate through both HHN and the holiday season. But from a construction standpoint, the sooner they start, the sooner they can finish the next big project. And we know that Intamin will be the manufacturer behind Rip Ride Rockit's replacement. Given their track record, this is really exciting news. Intamin has produced some of the best coasters in the world, including two of Universal's biggest hits, if not their biggest hits ever, Hagrid's Magical Creatures Motorbike Adventure and Jurassic World Velocicoaster at Islands of Adventure. Both of these rides are next level. Hagrid is arguably the best themed coaster ever built, while Velocicoaster is widely considered one of the best roller coasters, period, ever built. With Intamin involved, we can expect something intense and innovative, possibly even a ride that will surpass Rip Ride Rockit. Now, I know all y'all in the comments are going to be like, well, of course it's going to surpass Rip Ride Rockit, but let me have my moment. I really like this ride, okay? There have been plenty of rumors of what could replace it. We've discussed this before. I previously mentioned that Universal Studios could really benefit from Intamin's vertical launch coaster concept. The layout of this rumored ride lines up well with Rip Ride Rockit's existing footprint, which is very long and drawn out, but also extremely narrow, making this concept specifically a very strong possibility. It actually seems like the ideal replacement. It maintains its high capacity, has a very similar structure and footprint, and could easily be made even more thrilling, smoother, and more reliable. On paper, this is probably the best fit for Rip Ride Rockit's successor. That said, Universal has plenty of options at its disposal that could take a different approach entirely, given their diverse lineup of attractions. One possibility, which I know this may sound crazy, but they could literally use the exact same ride model as Velocicoaster. I mean, that coaster is as close to perfect as it gets, so why not just build another version of it? Not with the same layout, of course, but an Intamin LSM launch coaster would make a lot of sense. We've already seen similar ride models just within the state. We have Cheetah Hunt at Busch Gardens, technically a Blitz coaster, but functionally quite similar. Adding something like Velocicoaster to studios would be a very strong fit. And we know Universal isn't afraid to double down on successful ride concepts. They have a history of taking successful ride models and replicating them across their parks. We saw this with Kong leading to Fast and Furious, Spider-Man paving the way for Transformers, and Flight of the Hippogriff basically being mirrored by Trolls Roller Coaster. They've repeatedly used the same ride system in different ways, so replacing Rip Ride Rockit with something very similar to Velocicoaster is actually not out of the question. If there's any ride worth cloning, why not go with one of the best? A high-thrill Intamin LSM launch coaster could easily be designed to fit within Rip Ride Rockit's long, narrow footprint, while delivering a world-class experience. It'd be a very smart way to elevate the park's coaster lineup while maintaining high capacity and excitement. Now, another very strong possibility is actually taking inspiration from Universal Studios Hollywood, looking at their upcoming Fast and Furious Hollywood Drift roller coaster. This unique Intamin spinning model has the potential to be one of the best in the world, featuring a thrilling mix of launches, airtime hills, and inversions, all while the ride vehicles spin, similar to the Mach Extreme Spinner model. Having ridden Ride to Happiness in Plopsaland, I can confidently say that this model is one of the most intense roller coasters I've ever experienced. It's an Intamin version concept came to Universal Studios. I would not complain at all. Hollywood Drift is set to be a major hit for Universal Hollywood, especially since that park lacks a standout coaster. It's already one of the most anticipated attractions opening next year, so putting that exact same ride model in Orlando would actually make a lot of sense. Of course, it would require a custom layout to fit within that narrow footprint, but that would only make it more unique. A high-thrill spinning launch coaster that would not only maintain its strong capacity, but also deliver a fresh, intense experience that would stand out in Universal's lineup. On paper, this seems like the perfect replacement, and honestly, it's probably the most likely option. That said, I'd be happy with any of these three possibilities. Intamin consistently delivers incredible rides, and no matter which direction Universal takes, any of these models would be a fantastic addition, not just for the park, but for Florida's coaster scene as a whole. The theme for this new coaster is another very tricky factor. There have been a lot of rumors about Fast and Furious being the chosen theme, especially if Universal goes with the spinning coaster model. If that's the case, it would make sense to tie it into the franchise. However, Fast and Furious Supercharged is just a few steps away in the San Francisco section of the park, and let's be honest, that ride is extremely unpopular. To go with another Fast and Furious attraction while Supercharged still exists just feels like an odd choice. And I know you can make the same argument with Hollywood, but I feel like their Fast and Furious ride, since it's within the tram tour, doesn't really count. It's more of an add-on. It's not truly its own attraction, whereas at Studios it literally has its own facade, own show building, own queue, its own everything. Now, if Supercharged didn't exist, that'd be a different story. I'd say this was a definite, but given the current situation, it just doesn't make much sense. So what are the alternatives? Universal could go with an original theme similar to Rip Ride Rockit, but that's unlikely. They could bring back one of their classic IPs that fans have been begging for to return for years, one strong contender, Back to the Future. This franchise still has a huge following, and a high-speed launch coaster inspired by time travel would be an absolutely perfect fit. You could even make a launch go up to 88 miles an hour, and boom, you have an amazing themed Back to the Future ride. Fans have wanted this to return to Universal Studios for years, and this could be the ideal way to bring it back in a fresh, modern way. Another great option is Ghostbusters. Interestingly, the original Ghostbusters stage show was located right where Rip Ride Rockit's Helix is now, making this an almost poetic return for the IP. With the recent success of the Ghostbusters films, the franchise is still very relevant. It's been at HHN for a couple of years now, and bringing it back into the park would be a brilliant move. The theming potential for a Ghostbusters coaster is limitless, and it would fit right into Universal's lineup while appealing to both longtime fans and new audiences. But what do I really think the replacement will be? It is really tough to say when you have so many possible ride models and themes to play in. It becomes a really complicated puzzle to piece together. That said, if I had to place a bet, I think we'll see Fast and Furious Hollywood Drift make its way to Orlando. The timing, the ride model, and Universal's current trends all seem to point in this direction. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if Supercharged closes either right before or soon after the ride opens. There seems to be a very clear connection here. Universal is well aware of how much backlash Supercharged gets, and it really feels like they want to phase it out. Yes, the ride is only 7 years old, and yes, Universal poured a lot of money into it, but that massive show building has so much untapped potential. If they completely remove the ride, the space could easily be used for something incredible. Even if they kept that ride system but rethemed it to something better, it could still be a much stronger attraction. Ultimately, Universal just needs to properly handle Fast and Furious in the parks. It's an IP that does have so much potential, but their attempts so far have just been very, very lackluster. Finally, they're figuring it out with Hollywood, and I hope they make the right decision with Orlando. This new coaster is the perfect way to give that franchise a truly exciting ride, while Supercharged can just quietly disappear and be replaced with something far better. Universal Studios Florida has been in need of a major refresh, and while Islands of Adventure has gotten a lot of love recently with their 2 new roller coasters, Studios still needs a lot of attention. This looks like it is just the beginning of that transformation though. What's exciting is that we already have confirmation that Rip Ride Rockit is closing, and we do know that Intamin is behind the replacement. Seeing a massive new roller coaster added to Studios is going to be a game changer. It's just a matter of figuring out what it will be. So what do you think? What would you like to see replace Hollywood Rip Ride Rockit? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I love to read each and every one of your comments and hear them out and see what you guys think. Additionally, if you're interested in high quality POVs or off-ride footage, we have it all here at Theme Park Hunting, so be sure to check out my second channel, TPH Productions. With that, this is Hunter from Theme Park Hunting, and I will see you all later.